Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage as we have been able to learn from our family that has well over 100 years of experience in real estate and other alternative investments. Here on Master Your Millions, we seek to share that experience that we've learned and expand our knowledge as we talk to the top leaders in alternative areas of investing. Today we're super excited for our guest. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Today we have Kelly Cardenas, and I have to say, genuinely from really deep down the heart, I am excited to have Kelly. I, for some reason, I feel like he's a brother from another mother. He's a friend. Has lots of accolades. Of course, he has the Kelly Cardenas podcast. He's a keynote speaker, and probably, folks, believe it or not, there'll probably come a day in the future where you'll turn on the TV at late night, 10, 11 o'clock on a Friday night or something, and it'll be the Kelly Cardenas show. And he'll be sitting there interviewing all the celebrities and all the bigwig people. And there'll be a lot of people that'll come in there and be excited simply to be able to be interviewed by Kelly. He's just that kind of guy. So Kelly, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much. Your family is doing amazing things, and I'm honored to be here on the podcast.
Well, thanks. So tell us a little bit. You were born in Utah, is that right? And then eventually made your way to San Diego. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So I could say it in one breath. So I was born in England. We moved to Taiwan, Idaho, Utah, Florida, California, Memphis, California, Las Vegas, and back to San Diego.
That was too
So just a few times.
Wow, I didn't know all that. So you, for some reason, have this amazing outlook on life. And on our podcast, we talk a lot about it, enjoying your money has a lot to do with your mindset, and you have the absolute perfect mindset. How has that come about?
I don't think that I could take any credit for it. I was very fortunate to have two very, very loving parents that lifted me up, and they actually went a little bit deeper. So I learned this after they passed. So I believe that they knew that they were leaving early, so they needed to get me and my brothers ready and give us the blueprint. And so what they helped us to understand is that your heart set is number one. Your mindset comes from your heart set, and your skill set will come from your heart set or from your mindset. So it goes heart set, mindset, skill set. And what I find is so many people work so hard on the mindset itself, but they haven't worked on the foundational heart set. So my parents set my heart at ease because they told me I was awesome every single day. They told me that I was beautiful every single day. And they told me that I could do anything that I put my mind to every single day. My dad would sum it up in the fact that he would say, you're the greatest, boy. He would be, boy, you're the greatest. So act accordingly. So that was my heart set. So when I went into my mindset, because my heart set was, I'm awesome, separate myself from my accomplishments. I'm beautiful. Don't ever compare myself to anyone. And I can do anything that I put my mind to, but just because I could do it doesn't make it my purpose. And then I'm the greatest, so I need to act according to that greatness. Then my mindset was a lot simpler for me to be able to build on. And then my heart or my mindset really spit out the skill set, because really whatever I set my mind to, I know that I can do. But I know, because my parents taught me, that just because I can do it and it'll work doesn't make it right. So then it was about making sure that I was in line with my purpose. And my parents would always tell me, what is your purpose? They would ask me, what is your purpose? And I would be like, what is it? And they would say, just be Kelly. So if I only have to be Kelly, I know I'm awesome. I know I'm beautiful. I know I can do anything, and I know I'm the greatest. And then I just have to act accordingly. All my skill set and my mindset will fall in line with that.
Wow. We could end right there, and it would be awesome, and everybody would be better for it.
That was a good podcast. Thank you.
That was sweet. So, okay, so your parents helped you with your heart set. Give us some nuggets how someone who's listening and adjust their heart set, get their heart set correct. But for the fact, like you said, you were very fortunate to have parents to say, you're beautiful, you're capable, you're, all these things all the time.
Yeah.
Not everybody's had that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that either. Jason, I didn't realize it. Scott, I didn't realize it. I thought everyone grew up with parents like that. I thought that everyone had a dad, and I'm not saying that I had the perfect upbringing. I didn't. Like, there was times where we didn't have money, we didn't have a place to live, we didn't have all these things, but I kept hearing, no matter what, I kept hearing those things over and over again. But I thought everyone's parents does that. And so I realized that later on that there's only two things that humans need. Only two. One, they need to feel seen. Number two, they need to feel heard. That's it. So if I take you, Jason, and I ask you a question, and I intently listen to you, like really, really listen to you, not technique you, but listen to you. And then I apply the things that after I ask the question, if I apply that wisdom in my life, and then I come back to you the next week and I say, Jason, I want to let you know how awesome you are, first of all. And I want to tell you that your advice worked out amazing. And I used it, and this was the result. What happens to you at that time? Your chest goes out, you become a little bit more vulnerable. And what do? You give me more. You give me more advice. Well, my pops taught me this from a very early age. He said, be the dumbest person in the room. Dumb people ask questions. Don't be the smartest person in the room. That causes people to shell up. If you come in with your knowledge, you come in with your wisdom, then everyone's like, well, you already got what you need, so I'm holding up. I don't have anything to offer. But when you're dumb and you ask people, it brings out the best or sometimes the worst. And then you know who the person is and you know how to be able to deal with them. And it goes back to that point of what are the two things that people need? They need to feel seen. They need to feel heard. And I'm not talking about just in investing. I'm talking about in marriages. I'm talking about in business, building businesses with people. I'm talking about all those aspects. If I can help you to feel seen and feel heard, you feel valuable. When you become when you feel valuable, then you're vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, you give me every single thing that you have. And that's what I've learned through my pops and my mom every day is I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just hang out with geniuses like you, Scott, and like you, Jason. I don't have to understand the investing game. Why? Because I have two friends who I can ask some questions, be the dumbest person in this room. And then it brings out the best in both of you.
Wow. It sounds like not even thinking of another question for the fact I want to listen to every word you're saying. So you did say there though, and I remember you saying you called your dad different things. Sometimes it was pops. Well, tell us a little bit about that. Where did that come from?
Well, it was different stages of life. So when I was born, and I can't remember when it actually switched. But when I was born, he was dad, and dad was a disciplinarian. He put us up against, he had a 67 MGB GT, which was his pride and joy. And my brother was a football player. So my dad stepped back probably about maybe 10, 15 yards away from the car, put us both against the car, grabbed a football as a grown man, right? So I'm 10 years old. My dad had me when he was 22, I think it was. So he's 32 years old, grown man, 10-year-old, and he's got a 13-year-old that's sitting there. He steps 15 yards away from us, grabs a regulation size football and fires it at 32 years old as hard as he can. And he says before, if the ball hits the car and you dent my car, I'm going to whoop your ass. And so we learned how to catch the ball. My brother, one time when we were playing in the front yard, we had a rose bush. My brother dove in face first into a rose bush to catch the ball because of the way that he was trained. So dad was a disciplinarian. Dad put me on a hill at 14 years old in a Toyota truck with a stick shift and going up the hill with the parking brake on, getting out the truck, standing next to me and saying, learn how to drive. If you stall the car, I'm gonna whoop your ass. And here's me crying at 14 years old. I apologize for the language, Brixton. So by bum, I'm gonna whoop your bum. And that was dad. Then there was this transformation where he became pop. And pops asked questions. When you had challenges, he asked questions, he encouraged. He never told you what to do. He would draw the best out of you by just asking questions. He was empathetic. He was there with you. He wanted to know why you were feeling the way that you were. And then there was Campa. And only 7 people in the world experienced Campa. And that's Riley, Cameron, Sophia, Ada, Paloma, Maddox, and McKenna. There's only 7 people in the world that got Campa's wisdom. And he played those roles as he went through, and hopefully someday, and I got it the other day, Jason, I got it the other day. I was In-N-Out Burger. We got off the freeway, me and my son and my daughter and her friend. And we went to, I said, I got to run in to go to the bathroom real quick. We got our burgers, but we were in the car and we were on our way to LA. And I said, do you need to go to the bathroom? And my son turned to me and he said, I'm good, Pop. And I was like, because you can't make up your own nickname. You know what I mean? It's got to just happen. But my whole desire in life is that someday my kids will call me Pops.
Love that.
That's awesome. Wow. So before we were talking before we even got on the show here. So how did Pops affect you kind of early adulthood as you started making your way in the world?
I always had to look at how he would react, and he was always a principle-based guy. He was never a circumstantial guy. And those principles, he always said that, there's only one business in the world and one business only, and that's the people business. If you take the people out of the business, you have no business at all. And when you look at, no matter if you're listening and you're investing in homes or you're, building a business, or you're investing for your family, whatever it is, there's people involved. And if you connect with the people, everything will flourish. If you disregard the people, everything will crumble. And so that was a big thing for me always. And it was so frustrating though, Scott, because I'm sure that you get frustrated with your pop. Your pop is very wise. But there's times when you're a young kid and you're like, you ever hear the story of the baby bull and daddy bull?
I don't know if I have heard that one.
Okay. So the baby bull, daddy bull, standing on top of the hill. Baby bull looks to the daddy bull, looks down into the valley, sees a bunch of cows. Baby bull says to daddy bull, hey, daddy, why don't we run down and have us one of them cows? Daddy bull looks at the baby bull and says, why don't we walk down and have them all? You see, I was such a hard-charging entrepreneur and hard-charging person in my life, and my pop would sit back and he would say, it's already done. And God is just waiting on you to see how you'll react through the process, because he knows it's already said, it's already done, it's already written. Like all the desires of your heart, God made them anyway, and he's the author of them and he's the finisher of them. So if he gave you the desire, it's going to happen. But he's looking how you react during the process of it. So that was a thing for me in business. And I made tons of mistakes, huge amounts. I mean, Scott, I don't know if you've done this, I would not suggest it. But I mean, I've made decisions where in 6 weeks, I've lost $1.2 million. Like that's stupid. I could have avoided it had I listened to my pop, slowed down and focused on the people. But I didn't. I thought, no, I'm wise. I got this, Pop. You need to step back. But I think that's why it's so important to be able to have people. I had my pop in my life, which was my best friend and my dad. But to have people in your life that will speak life to you and impart wisdom, and also to direct your eyes to where they need to be anyway. And this is what my pop would always say. I would ask him a question. He would say, I don't know, but I know someone who does. And he would direct my eyes to the Lord. And when he directed my eyes to the Lord, I get mad because as a young kid, you know what I'm talking about, Scott. Jason, you're like, yeah, that's what you need to do. But as a young kid, you're like, yeah, but I need practical application now. I need to know now. And every time he would lead my eyes to the Lord, then that thing would prosper. When I tried to take it into my own hands, it would crumble. But I believe he did that, and my mom did that because they knew they were checking out early. My mom passed when she was 62 and my dad passed when he was 68, and they knew I was going to live a lot of life without them. So they knew that I needed to have someone who I could go to every single day, and that is Jesus in my heart.
I love that. Thank you. I said earlier how excited I was to have you on the podcast, and we only really were able to arrange this recently. However, I have wanted to have you on the podcast since the very beginning of our podcast, since I listened to you last August. And it was during that time that you were a keynote speaker, which is one of your other roles that you do. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you have all these different things you're going on, but you're a keynote speaker at an event called Prosperity Camp down in Carlsbad, California. And not only did my wife and I laughed the whole time. I mean, we laughed and laughed, and it was genuine, clean, fun laughter. However, you brought a message out that everyone in the room resonated with, and that was particularly about joy. Tell me a little bit, or again, a little bit about how you see joy and what that is.
Well, I was taught very early on that by my mom that we in our lives and in the world are going to be sold a bag of goods for our whole lives. And at the time, I didn't realize how impactful that would be. And she said, you're going to be sold a bag of goods by the world, and the world is going to tell you to chase happiness. And happiness is going to come with sadness, and you're going to go on this roller coaster of life. But if you simply choose joy, son, you choose joy and you fall in love with your current circumstances and allow the magic to happen, then joy will be everywhere where you go. Joy will be in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 people. Joy will be in 6th grade when your parents split up because you think it was because of you, because I took a butt kicking by my dad and my parents got in a fight. Joy is going to be when your parents split up and you think it's because of you at 6th grade, that you can fall in love with that circumstance. When you're living with your mom's friend, sleeping on the couch at a formidable time of 6th grade, when you're trying to be cool and you don't even have a home, and you're sleeping for 2 weeks on their couch and having to hide from your dad because your parents are fighting, you could choose joy in that time. And you could choose joy when you live in a double wide mobile home on the side of the freeway, 40 miles away from your high school, and only have one car that the transmission slips and it takes 5 miles to get up to 60 miles an hour. You could choose joy, son, because you can have a BB gun and shoot squirrels where nobody else can because you live 40 miles away from your town. And she taught me about that. And that has been, I mean, for me, no matter what, when I said losing money or losing businesses or, different things like that, it's the choosing of joy. It's the choosing of joy on, in losing both my parents and, my mom, like literally one day after Father's Day. And I call her, I'm at Wrigley Field. That's why I'm wearing the hat today, is because of Chicago. And I text her from Wrigley Field, hey, Mom, here's the kid. She loves the grandkids, all this stuff. I text her, and then I talk to her on Father's Day. And then the next morning, I get a call from my brother at 2:00 in the morning. Mom has passed. There was no signs. I had to choose joy at that time. And it was because of all the wisdom that she imparted. And I tell you, no matter where you're at, whether your business is good or your business is bad, I could tell you this. You're either coming out of a trial, in a trial, or on your way into a trial. So if you are constantly looking to circumstance for you to be happy, it's going to be a long, nasty road. But if you simply choose joy every single day, then everything works out. Everything works out. I mean, you think about Romans 8:28. God works all things for the good of those who love him and who are called into us according to his purpose. And Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all, not some, not occasionally, not just your finances or your food or all things will be added on. And my mom and pops really taught me the simplicity of life was to choose joy in every circumstance. And that's where the magic will happen all around you.
When you're entrepreneurial circumstances, which you've had a lot of them, and you've had some ups and downs, how have you done in choosing joy each time? Have you give yourself a grade? And I know that's hard, but what if you feel like you've done a good job?
I would say 2 in the moment. You know, I mean, I told you guys the story. I remember getting, my business robbed, right? And they called me, and this happened 5 times in the first 5 years I was open, my first location, like 5 major robberies. And the last time they called me at 2:00 in the morning, I ride all the way over there. It's about 40 minutes away from my house. At 2:00 in the morning, I'm tired. I get there. They had smashed my window. I go to, they show me the security footage, and lo and behold, they smashed it with a rock and then walked over to the door, felt the door, and the door was open. So they didn't even have to smash the window. They could have just walked in. And when they went to walk in, they walked in, and out of all the like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that they could have stole from me in material and material things, they stole my Keurig. So I can tell you this, I was not choosing joy at that time, Jason. I wasn't. I was mad. I was angry. I was like so mad. And then I get back in my car at 4:00 in the morning. I drive across town 40 minutes, and I'm speeding because I think I have the right to speed because I got my job, my business robbed. Cop pulls me over. I think I'm going to go ahead and tell him I got my business robbed. He's got a heart, whatever. He steps up to the thing and he said, "Sir, do you know how fast you were going?" I said, "Yep." And then I told him the story about getting robbed. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Here's your ticket." And I was so angry. And God snatched a knot in my tail right then. And he said, "The only reason why you had the opportunity to get robbed tonight is because I blessed you with a business. And if you would like me to solve the challenge of you getting robbed in your business forever, I can do that. Or you can start being thankful for the business that I gave you." So I would say in the moment, I score a 2. When I tell the stories, I'm at a 10, baby.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Love it. So fun to always talk to you, Kelly. I want to talk a little bit about some of your maybe things you've learned from being in business, being an entrepreneur, your ideas about finance and investing. I mean, one of the things that some people I think really get confused on, what do you think is the difference between investing and saving?
Ooh. Saving, you hide your money. Investing, you make it work.
Okay.
So going on with that, where's the careful balance? Or do you think there's a balance? Should everything be invested? What should be enjoyed?
Well, I think it's a personal aspect, right? So I heard one side, Justin Freistadt, he's a friend of mine, and he said, and this was his side. So this is not me. Don't quote me and be like, "Kelly told me this." His side was, until you're an accredited investor, only invest in yourself. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool. I mean, it worked well for him. And he's like, because when you become an accredited investor, once you have over $1 million in net worth outside of your, primary residence, or make 200,000, income for 2 years, or married, you have 300,000 in income between the two of you. He said, before that point, you're not going to make a huge dent anyway. This was his thought, not mine. But I thought, wow, okay, that applies for him. Then there's the Dame Ramsey side, right? No debt at all. Honor yourself, and there's times in my life that I'm like, wow, that really applies. And then there's the rocket fuel, right? The Rick Ross way, scared money don't make money. You know what I'm saying? So I think that a person has to look at who they are. Let's go back to heart set. If you don't know you're awesome, you don't know you're beautiful, and you don't know that you could do anything, but just because you could do it doesn't make it your purpose. If your heart set isn't in play, I would pause. Because any investment that you do, most of the time, if you don't know that you're awesome, then you're going to think, because I invested and I get a good return, I'm going to be awesome. So you link your awesomeness to your accomplishments, and that is a recipe for disaster. In the event that you don't know that you're beautiful, that you are still comparing yourself to people, then you're going to look at videos of Grant Cardone and be like, I'm a piece of S because I don't make $400,000 a year, which caused so many people to go crazy on social media. And then there's the side of, I can do anything that I put my mind to, but just because I could do it doesn't make it my purpose. Then you're going to watch and you're going to, because you don't know you're beautiful, you're going to compare yourself to someone and be like, oh, wow, they made $4 million on YouTube within 2 seconds if I just take this course. And then you're going to buy into that course and get yourself in trouble. So what I would say, anytime you're going to invest, make sure that you get your heart set in line. Your heart set will build your mindset, and your mindset will build your skill set. But until that heart set is strong, you won't really know what's for you. For me right now, because I was very fortunate, because I can be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit. Now, I have the propensity though, that I think that every infomercial is going to make me a billionaire tomorrow. Like that's what I'm like a lot of time in my head. That's like God wired me like that. Like I'm a risk taker. And that's why I have my wife saying, shut up, dummy. It was an infomercial. You know what I'm saying? So I would caution a person, and I would say that I don't believe that there's any one way to do it. I would say okay, watch this. And I have it on my, on this. We were just talking about it in our men's group today, and I'll give you this formula. Okay. This is going to mean nothing to you. Okay. But I'm going to take you through it. If you're going to invest, okay, number one, you need to fear God, which means respect God. Fear, respect, right? Fear of God will bring you wisdom. Wisdom will bring you knowledge. Oh, it's on this side. Knowledge. Knowledge will bring you understanding. Understanding will bring you insight. Insight will bring you discretion. Discretion will bring you discipline. And discipline will cause you to fear God or respect God in every single situation. So if you always go to that circle, meaning that at the beginning of wisdom, to get true wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge, if I simply fear or respect who God is in my life, he will bring wisdom, knowledge, understanding, insight, discretion, and discipline. But outside of that, when you start doing your own stuff, get back to me on it.
So from that circle, if you will, is where you base your decisions on what you do with your money, sort of your investment. That's kind of an investment philosophy.
I tell you, and I fail at this. I failed at it the other day. On Sunday, I failed at it. Okay. So I try and live like, I'm not saying like I got the answer, look at the wheel, and I'm the guru. I'm not. I'm a bonehead that makes stupid decisions. And I did the other day. And I'll tell you if you'd like.
You want to air it out? Let's go for it. Here's a confession.
So Maddox, my son, is 11 years old, and he got these LED lights that have little stickers on the back of them. You put them on the wall, and it makes your room look like a club, and my son was so excited. He's 11 years old. So he's like, Daddy, can we hang up the lights? I said, yes, we can hang up the lights. Well, my wife, we were supposed to go see my brother at this time, but I was like, I got 15 minutes. I can hang these lights up. I'm the man. I got this. I go get the ladder. I get set up. And right when I start working, I get frustrated with my son. And I don't know why this is, but I start getting frustrated. I'm trying to tape the wall and trying to do all this stuff, and I'm getting frustrated. Guy keeps telling me, like, calm it down. And I'm like, I got this, God. I don't need you right now. I got this. So I go through, we get halfway up, and I tell my son, like, let's test the lights before we're all the way done to see if they work. Well, my son's 11. He had the remote, and guess what he did? He lost the remote, which caused me to get so furious. And I wanted to go back in his life all the 11 years and tell him all the things and why he misplaces stuff, and you need to be more responsible. And God keeps whispering to me, I need you to pray with me right now. I need you to pray with me. Pray with your son right now, because this is the example. Like, I want him to focus on me. And I was like, yeah, whatever, God. I ain't praying. I'm mad. And I'm going to show him I'm mad. I'm going to teach him a lesson. So I'm still up on the ladder. And then finally, reluctantly, I say, son, like this, son, we need to pray. And he's scared and freaked out because I'm so mad. And I reluctantly prayed, but I didn't mean it. I was just praying because God told me to. I didn't mean it in my heart. And then we didn't find the remote. And then my wife walks in. She's so calm, asks questions, talks to my son. She's so nice. And she's like, do you think it's over here in the bed? I was like, I've looked over there about 10 times. She said, very nicely, she said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and look anyway. Scott, she looked in that same place I've been looking at for 10 times. You know what she found? The remote.
The remote.
Sitting right there. And what God told me at that time was that the kids, my children, and he was telling me this the whole time, but I wasn't listening. He said, your son will never remember these lights. He'll remember your reaction and the way he felt while you were putting them up. So be careful. But I wasn't careful. And he said, seek me. I will bring the remote. And I was reluctant. I didn't mean my prayer. And what he taught me in that point was every single thing in your life, whether it be personal, professional, spiritual, or financial, all God is saying is come to me. I own it all. And if you think through your worldly wisdom or your thought process, your knowledge, your experience, that you're going to sideline me and stiff arm me, go ahead and try it. And then you're going to go through some things that you didn't have to go through. But if you'll just seek me, that fear, respect of me, I'll give you the wisdom that you need. I'll give you the knowledge. I'll give you the understanding, the insight, the discretion, and the discipline. And then when you have that discipline will lead you right back to seeking me in every single thing that you do, whether it be investing in your family or any aspect of life. And I tell you, like, I fell at this, and I just failed at it the other day.
So recently you have, or it's an ongoing thing, you have what's called the Vibe Room. And I was at one of your events a month ago or so. And during that, you said something along this lines. You said, your children will never remember what you tell them. They'll remember what you show them. So on the way, it just hit me, like, wow, what am I doing? Am I doing things right? So on the way home, my daughter's in the back seat, and I said, Brixton, what am I showing you? And she goes, you're showing me how I should be treated. That when I find a husband, that I need to be treated the way you treat me. That's what I'm looking for when I grow up. I was like, I don't remember ever saying that to her. Right? And so it was so true what you said, that your kids are not going to remember what you tell them. They're going to remember what you show them. Which is, and I mean, all this is related to enjoying, and I'm talking to our listeners, enjoying the money that you have. Yes, the podcast is Master Your Millions. Don't get confused that you need to have millions to have joy in the journey, right? Have joy where you're at. Kelly said it, you can have joy in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 people when you choose that joy. Really, really cool. I love that. There's so many times when I talk to you and I just have these mind-blowing experiences, understandings that make me a better person. And that's kind of hopefully what we're doing here with this whole podcast is putting out good information, good wisdom to help people that do listen to be better people and then go do what they want to do. Yeah, I want everybody to be a millionaire. I want everybody to have it. That's where I'm at. And it's just kind of cool. Maybe I went off on a tangent there. Scott, bring us back. You got a question you want to ask? Oh, well, maybe not. I love that. So Kelly, I'm trying to remember. You have this practice that you go down to the beach. Fortunately, you're able to, since you live in Carlsbad. You can go down to the beach, and you make time to meditate. You make time to think. Right? How does that play in with some of your decision making when it comes to entrepreneurism or a project? Is that where you think about it? I mean, are you one of these people that say, yeah, let me think about it, and then you go think about it on the beach, or do you make decisions quickly? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's depending. Like, I think that one of my friends said to me, slow down so you can speed up. And I wasn't a slow down till you speed up kind of guy. I was shoot. What do they say? Shoot, aim, and then fire.
Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah,
ready,
exactly.
fire, aim.
Yeah. So I would shoot right away, and but it's a strength. I think it's a superpower that I have because I got permission from my parents very early on that I could do anything that I put my mind to. So for me, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to start a business if you never started a business before. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to, you know, negotiate a commercial real estate deal for your first business if you've never had. I didn't know that. So I just went and did it. I didn't know that you were, not supposed to open up, multiple businesses across the country where you didn't live and open your first business where you actually didn't reside. I didn't know that. So my ignorance was a superpower, right? As I've gone along, though, God has helped me to be able to slow down so I can speed up. And that time at the beach is massive. Like I read the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And I tell you, any business person out there, any person, I don't care what your religious, and it's not a religion for me at all. It's a relationship, but I don't care what you believe. If you simply take the book of Proverbs, and I was challenged on this, if you take the book of Proverbs and you read the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, meaning that there's 31 proverbs in Proverbs, and there's 31 days in a month, most of the time, or 30 days. But if you just go through that routine, you'll see your income exponentially increase. You'll see your investments increase. Why? Because you'll be working based off a principle of the deal as opposed to the shiny part of the deal. And this is what I've learned in entrepreneurship and with any type of opportunities. And don't get me wrong, I haven't always made the good decisions. I've chased the shiny thing. I've chased the shiny thing and lost, massively. But I find that when I test it against principles, right? So when I test it, when I say trust in the Lord, lean not to your own understanding, in all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Trust, lean, submit, straight. So if your path isn't straight or you're having a challenge, what I find, and that's in Proverbs, that's Proverbs 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when I look at that and I read that every single day, and I read those things every single day, I'm feeding on principles. So that way, when the deal comes, and this is a Warren Buffett thing, you know what Warren Buffett does. Warren Buffett, when you read about him, he doesn't take many meetings. He reads every single day. He reads tons of articles. And then when the deal comes, he can make a decision like that. Why? Because he's steeped himself in truth and principle. So that way, when the circumstance comes, he already has done the due diligence. But most of the time with us, me included, we have the tendency to wait for the deal to come. And then we're doing all the due diligence. And then we make a decision on the fly without any research. And then we ask God to bless our decision. And God is like, I didn't plant that. As opposed to just going to him and saying, is this the right thing? And I can tell you this with the Vibe Room, when you're talking about, I've been praying for the Vibe Room for a long period of time. And I've been asking God, if it is for me and you want it to continue, I want you to do it. If not, I want you to take it all away. And imagine if you did that with all your investments. Imagine if you said, whoever your God is, and I'm not saying you have to, whoever your God is, if your God is the statue next to me, imagine every investment that you had, you said, this is my God. I'm going to go impart wisdom in me. If this is your will for my life, then I want the investment. But if not, I want no part of it. Imagine how many catastrophes in investing would be circumvented because we sought wisdom before we actually made the decision.
I love that. I know that, and for those that not have been familiar with this, I mean, Solomon was considered probably the wealthiest person to have ever lived on the planet, right? Ever. I mean, it surpasses any name you can come up with, all of them. And he wrote Proverbs, and that's why you go there, right? I mean, that's his wisdom distilled into 31 chapters, like you say. Simply read one each day. I really love that mentality. I remember reading a book that was kind of their thing too, was to read those chapters every day. I'm glad to meet someone that actually does that. I need to do that too. That's a good idea.
So Kelly, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
When is it that you know that God's saying no versus this is just an obstacle to overcome? Since in my mind, I'm very similar to you in a lot of ways, and that's why I'm enjoying this, is a lot of the conversations that you've had with your wife or your dad, I have all the time with my father. Because he's ready, aim, fire, and I'm just, let's do it. So how do you know the difference between those things? I mean, there's many times where I feel like it's just an obstacle to overcome versus this is just God's way of saying no.
So I would say this, the first one that I've learned, and this is just my own aside, because I don't know how God speaks to you. But the way that God speaks to me is like, he'll slap me upside the head and be like, yo, dummy, you don't need to do that. Like, that's how we have a relationship, and that's how he talks to me. So some people, it comes through different ways, but that's my personal relationship with him. And what I would say is, anytime that you feel like you're going to miss out or lose the deal, or that it's going to go away if you don't do it now, it's not of God. Because God's not in a hurry. He owns it all. And he literally could drop money out the sky like that, drop food out the sky, and fix your marriage, do everything like that. So if he does, he's not in a rush. If you ever, and this is a principle my brother taught me, like when I go to buy a car, I remember there was a 96 300Z emerald green. We were at the movie theater, and I went to my brother, and I'm notorious for this, like bringing stuff in that doesn't matter at the time. That's what I'm notorious for. Like, we'll be at the movies and we'll be spending time together, and I'll be like, Rob, should I do this business deal? He'll be like, shut up. Like, it's not time. Like, you're spending time with your family. Shut your mouth. But the 96 emerald green 300C is my favorite car in the world. Favorite car. If I could have any car in the world, that 96 is my year. It's a car. And I turned to my brother, we're at the movies. I was like, hey man, should I get the car? This is a sought after car at the time. And if I don't get it now, someone's going to scoop in and take it. He said, well, son, well, boy, if somebody scoops in and takes it, it wasn't for you. And I can tell you, this is where young, hard-charging entrepreneurs have challenges, and this is what my wife taught me. There has never, not one time, ever been an entrepreneur that has ever died from starvation of not enough opportunity. But there are millions of entrepreneurs that are battling with indigestion from trying to eat too much. And so what I would say is, if there's fear, stress, anxiety, it's not of God. And I would test it with him. And every time that you test something with his word and with his truth, he will tell you explicitly. Even though he wrote it, the word is 2,000 years before, read it principle-based. Principle based. Let me show you, because I was just reading Proverbs 16, and I didn't know we were going to have this exact conversation. But let me grab my glasses too, because I think that I can still read, but I need readers because I'm getting a little old. So, all right, here we go in Proverbs 16:16. How much better to get wisdom than gold? Get insight rather than silver. So what God just said is that whatever you think is the advantage of the deal, his wisdom is more valuable than that. And his insight is more valuable than the second most valuable thing at the time, because gold was the most expensive and silver was the second. And imagine if we as people invested in wisdom, then any deal that came that was the right deal for you, you would be able to move on just like that. And would that be worth more than the deal or the ROI that you got on the deal that said that they were going to bring you a, 10 cap, or they were going to bring you, 15% over a year compound? Yes, because the wisdom to know the difference between the deals. And what I would do is I would just, with you specifically, Scott, is I would say, if I ever feel, because how old are you, Scott?
28.
Okay. So at 28, there's a lot of deals that you think in your head, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose out. Am I correct?
Of course.
Okay. If you ever feel that, test it. There is nothing that you will ever miss out on when you're seeking God first in your investments and in your family and your life. Nothing. And I don't know if you heard the story. You heard the story about the farmer?
I've heard a lot of stories about farmer. Which one?
So there's a story about the farmer, and he has a son, and someone gives him they find these stallions, these horses, these wild horses, and they bring them over, and they're like really high quality. The farmer gets the new stallion, and everyone in the town comes to him and says, "Oh my gosh, you're so fortunate. You just got this amazing stallion." And he said, "Maybe." Next day, his son is out there on the horse trying to break the horse. And he falls off the horse, breaks his arm. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, isn't this such an awful thing that you got that horse? Because now your son's got a broken arm." The guy says, "Maybe." The next day they come to with the draft and to draft his son into the army. But because he has a broken arm, he actually doesn't have to go to war. They said, "Oh my gosh, are you so excited that your son, broke his arm? Now he doesn't have to go off to war." He said, "Maybe." And you can imagine how that story goes all the way down the line. Every single circumstance in your life is directed, and God's in control. And the moment, and I learned this the hard way, the moment that you think you're in control, sit in a room by yourself. And I don't even care if you believe in God. Sit in a room by yourself and say, "God, all my money is mine. My life is mine. I'm in control. And even if you wanted to take away my money, you couldn't." And then see. I can guarantee you, I ain't trying that. Even if I don't believe in God, I ain't trying that.
I love it. Thank you so much. I could go on and on and on just listening to some of the things you talk about. So I want to ask you though, obviously the Bible would be your number one book to go to for knowledge and wisdom. What would you say to, someone who's starting out, like your 17 or 18-year-old self?
Yeah.
What kind of wisdom would you impart to them? I mean, you've already said, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to start right here. Mm-hmm. Now, what other books or other things would you tell your 17, 18-year-old self starting on this journey to accumulating wealth and also enjoying that? Where would you direct them?
As a 17 or 18-year-old of myself, I would have read Baby Steps, Dave Ramsey. I would have read that. Okay. I would have followed that up with Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins.
Okay.
I would make sure that I was reading Proverbs every single day, though, because I would be rooted and grounded to make sure that, and this sounds crazy, Scott, and I want you to understand, like, as a 28-year-old, that's not accusational what I was talking to you about. It's just like, I've been through the 28 part of it, and I understand, and I want you to know that you're in a lot better place than I was. A heck of a lot better place, man. I wish I would have just had Scott as a mentor when I was that age. But I would say, after I would make sure that I was reading Proverbs, because I would test all of the Dave Ramsey stuff and I would test all of the Tony Robbins stuff with the principles. Like with the principles that I learned in Proverbs. I would read Think and Grow Rich. I would read Og Mandino. I would read Ken Blanchard. I would read The Energy Bus. And I would consume every single thing that I possibly could, although I would make sure that I had a strong filter in place. Because I could tell you this, at 17 years old, if I would have read just Dave Ramsey, I would have thought, "Oh, wow, I need to be conservative for the rest of my life." Then if I read Tony Robbins, I would have been like, "Oh man, Dave Ramsey is wrong." Dave Ramsey's not wrong. He's right for the right person at the right time that's directed. Tony Robbins, right for the right person when you're directed. The place where you're going to be directed, though, is in Proverbs. And I could tell you this, like if I was stranded on an island, though, and I could only read one, I could tell you, like from 21 to 23, there was only one book that I read, and it was the Word. That was it. And I had the most exponential growth in my life from the age of 19 to the age of 23, and set the foundation for everything else. And I've been a bonehead and mixed stuff in, but I would tell you that, principle based, I would always look at the principles. I wouldn't look at the results. I would look at we had our men's group this morning, and I told a guy that, my brothers and I started a company, and I said, this is honestly, most likely going to retire all of us. And my friend asked me, but what's the reason why you're doing it? And I said, because my mom told me and my brothers to always stick together, to make sure that nothing ever came in between us, and that we would rule great nations one day. And he said, cool, because he wanted to test why I was actually doing it. So what I would say to my 17-year-old self is, all the things that you want, check your heart set and ask yourself why you want them. Because I could tell you this, Scott and Jason, there was things at 17, 18 years old that I wanted just because I wanted them. They weren't going to do any good. I wasn't going to be able to make any impact on people. I wasn't going to be able to leave any legacy with people. I just wanted them because I was broke. I had grown up broke, and I wanted to show people that I could do it. And when you fuel things like that, you build a foundation, like you build the foundation of doo-doo. You're going to have a house of doo-doo, no matter what you build on top of it.
Have you read the book Becoming Your Own Banker?
Yeah. That was a great one. It's Nash. Nash is his.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
What would you add to the list? 3 Feet from Gold.
3 Feet from Gold with Greg Reed. Unbelievable, transformational at the time in my life. Like 3 years ago, I became friends with Greg Reed. I read the book. It was unbelievable for me at that particular time. 3 Feet from Gold. Yes. What is it? Power of Proximity with Greg. There's so many. I would literally, I don't know if I ever told you this, but from the time I was in kindergarten to the time I graduated from high school, Scott, close your ears on this. I only read one book, and it was The Island of the Blue Dolphins. And it was because I had already seen the movie, so I knew the end of it. If I was to go back, I would have read voraciously, like everything that I could get my hands on. I would have read, I would have listened to podcasts, I would have done all those things, because there's so many different bits of wisdom that you could take from so many people. And my pops taught me this. Most of the time, people are really turned off by the person saying the message, so they don't get the message. But what he taught me is if the mailman brought you a check for $1 million today, would you go out and hug the mailman? No, you would thank the person who sent it. And God is sending a lot of messages like he did at the Vibe Room, wrapped in a bunch of F-bombs that have a good point to them. But it takes a filter, which I'm so proud of you, because I looked in your daughter's eyes that night. And although, Jason, you wanted to extract her from the room, I could tell you this, I looked in her eyes, and as I talked to her, her filter, because she's so loved and she's so lifted up and she has so many great principles in her life, that young lady was not impacted by any of those things that night because of the strong foundation that you laid. And I want to thank you, and I want to praise you for that, because that is something that is so amazing for you and Tanya to do.
Thank you. What, then that's looking back. Let's turn around now and say, what would you say, where are you going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 10 years? Tell us what Kelly's going to do. And we ask all our guests this, and I want to put kind of caveat on this is, we want you back when you have accomplished it. It may not be in 5 years. It may be in 6 months. Where are you going? What's the next mountain?
Besides skiing with us here next year, besides coming out and skiing, like
I am in. You guys can't get rid of me. I told you I'm going to force you to be my friends for the rest of your life. So I'm in, man. I'm family. Let's see. No, I mean, first and foremost, I want to be doing exactly what God has me to do on that particular day. The reason why I say this, and it may sound cliche, but every time that I've been like, yo, I'm cool, this is where I'm going to be, then God is like, that's how I felt in Vegas. And then we opened in Carlsbad, and my wife told me, hey, let's move to Carlsbad. He asked me on a dog walk 3 years ago, actually almost 4. God asked me on a dog walk. He said, would you be cool without all the salons? Because we had salons before. And I was like puffed up. I listen to some gangster rap. I don't know about you, Scott, but you probably don't tell your dad, but you listen to some. And Dad's like, you shouldn't listen to that music. But he was listening to some custom music back in the 70s, so he's fine. You were in the 70s. I was in the 70s. So what God asked me was, would you be okay without the salons? And I listen to gangster rap. Like, I got Biggie sitting right next to me. That's Biggie. That's Redman up there. I was like, I got you, God. Of course. Well, little did I know, 15 minutes later, I was going to get a call from the director of our salon here in Carlsbad, and the whole staff was going to leave on that day. $880,000 worth of revenue gone in one day. Bang, gone. So every time that I have a plan, and I think I figured God out, and I asked him the other day, I said, God, I was praying, and I wrote down, I said, God, help me to understand your will. And he just wrote right back to me, you will never understand my will, because I will only release it to you step by step as we go and as I see fit. Because if not, you'll mess it up. Although, here we go. He told me 5 years ago that he would put me in a place, or he told me in 1997, Romans 9:17, that he would put me in a place that when I spoke, then people had to listen, and when they listened, they'd hear his voice. He followed it up with King Herod Agrippa. King Herod Agrippa heard the people say, that's the voice of a man, not the voice of a God, not the voice of a man. And because it sounded good in his heart, he didn't even say anything to anybody. God struck him dead just like that. God let me know that he was going to put me in a place that when I spoke, they had to listen. When they listened, they would hear his voice, not mine. If I ever got to the point where I thought it was my voice, then he would take it all away. 5 years ago, that was 1997, he gave me that vision. So 5 years ago, he gave me the part. And Pop, I want you to know, Jason, you spoke life into me when we started off this podcast, when you said that I was going to be on a TV show at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whatever. I'd like it to be at 10 because I'd like to be at bed. But you said that. 5 years ago, he gave me the vision that I would speak in a small theater, and then it would go to a venue of House of Blues, which would be 3,000 to 5,000. Then we would go to MGM Grand or Mandalay Bay Arena, which would be 13,000 to 15,000. Go to Madison Square Garden, which would be 17,000 to 19,000, and culminate in a Soldier Field or a like venue, which would be 70,000 to 100,000. And that's what I would be speaking to. My instant question, like yourself, Scott, would be, what am I going to say then? And his answer was very, very clean and very clear. I'll tell you when I get there. And I was so excited 5 years ago because I was like, baby, we're on the road. This is what we're doing. I'm going tomorrow. Can you go get 100,000 people right now? Because I'm ready. And my wife said, shut up, dummy. It's going to start with a stage of 1. It's going to start with the audience of 2, 3, 4, 6. By the time you get there, then the 100,000 won't matter. It'll be the one person in the room that needs to hear the message. So I've already done the 3,000 to 5,000. I've been in the Mandalay Bay Event Center, and I walked in and I walked out on stage, and the arena was empty. And God showed me the empty one. And at first I was let down, and he said, I'm just showing you, because when I fill it, you'll know what my promise is. I haven't been to Madison Square Garden, and I haven't been to Soldier Field, but we're coming, baby.
Cool. When those events come around, let me know. I'll buy a ticket and be there.
You'll at least have 2 there this time. We'll be there.
There we go. So we need 99,998 more. So if you're out there, come on, let's do it.
I love it. Great. We need to be wrapping this up. It's been such a treat, and I want to have you back again. Like you said, I'm going to force you to be my friend for life. I don't know about the other way around, but there's been so many nuggets of wisdom here this last few minutes we've been together, is there something that you feel like that still needs to be said, something that you still want? I mean, there is people that listen to this podcast, and then our listenership is growing. What would you say? Would you throw out? Do you have anything that's tickling in your heart that you feel like you need to say?
Well, I would ask that question to Scott, and I would ask that question to you. I mean, what were the takeaways for you guys?
I love the whole thing about heart set. Sorry, I jumped in front of Scott. I should have waited for him. My whole thing about heart set, and I wonder, do you look in the mirror and say, "You're awesome, you're beautiful, and you can do anything every day"? Because that's what your parents taught you, right? Okay, so some people that don't have that, those are your journals.
These are the journals that I write to my daughter, my wife, and my son every day. So I write them letters every day, and then I give it to them at the end of the week. And most of the time they don't read it, and then they give it back to me, and then I write the letters again. And those 3 statements, because I got it every day. Now it's ingrained, like it's muscle memory, right? So for me, but I sometimes have to be reminded of it, but I write it to my kids every day. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my number one takeaway, because we talk a lot about mindset, and it's thinking like, well, maybe we're getting the cart before the horse, that we need to talk more about heart set. What do you think, Scott? What's your takeaway?
Honestly, I always get caught up in the small details on where I'm going. I am one of the most impatient people there are out there, and my dad can attest to that. And so I guess I'd sum it up in one sentence is, sit back and let God. Don't force it. Let him bring it to you.
And Scott, I want to encourage you, because don't beat on yourself because you're impatient. That's a superpower, right? And as you go along right now, like you think about my dad going through those progressions from my dad to Pops to Campa. Campa was like a sage. He was like the guy whittling wood on the porch that was just like no movement unless it was needed. Pops, was a little bit more active. Dad was getting it. But allow yourself to go through those progressions, and the fact that you're already talking about these things and doing the things that you're doing. I mean, I tell you, it is unbelievable, man. You're an absolute inspiration. And, I know that you hear that from your parents all the time, but you need to hear it every single day, like every single day. And if you don't, get it every single day from your wife, from your kids, or whatever it is, turn on this podcast and just imagine that I'm talking to you, because Scott, you're awesome. You're beautiful, and you can do anything. You're the greatest. So act accordingly, man. Act according to that greatness that you have.
Thank you, Kelly. We really do appreciate you coming on. Well, if some of our guests wanted to connect with you or show up to the 100,000 stadium, how would they go about doing so?
Well, the first thing is to check out the podcast. So on Apple, YouTube, anywhere you could get your podcast, I would love that. If you come on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, because my son thinks I'm cooler if I subscribe, if I have more subscriptions. And then you can, if you want to experience the podcast live, which I think is one of the most unbelievable experiences, which is called the Vibe Room. The Vibe Room is a live podcast where you get unfiltered, conversations that you would never have access to. And also with the guest, it's not like they're, on top of the world or they're untouchable. They're in the room with you. And to be able to have a date night, imagine this, guys out there, imagine a date night where you could go, you could laugh, be filled up in your heart, and learn some amazing, from entrepreneurial journeys, or even network, and you group them all together and have the coolest date night of all time. That's what the Vibe Room is. And so that's going to be coming in Orem, July 13th. We're doing one. And then it's going to be in August in Carlsbad, and it's coming to LA soon too.
Love it. And we would highly recommend everyone going there. Yeah. And we'll drop a link down below. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, make sure to hit us up on our Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, or drop us an email. All the links will be in the show notes down below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like it, it really helps us out. Also, last, remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.